Greetings, my friend, and welcome to the podcast, Teaching That Transforms with Dr. Jimmy Knott. Thanks so much for joining me today. Well, we're continuing our new season of episodes on one of my favorite subjects for the last 25 years, and that's the subject of leadership, leading well. I'm calling this series, It's All About Leadership, subtitled, Be a Leader Worth Following. By the way, that's the same title as my book, which is available on Amazon. It's all about leadership. I really encourage you to purchase it during this season of teaching, so I think you'll really find it to be a helpful resource. It's also available on my website, jimmyknott.com, jimmyknott.com, JIMMYKNOTT.com. I think you'll find it to be helpful. Well, as we're continuing our study in this very important subject, being a leader worth following. People, employees, workers, people prefer to be led by leaders who bring out the best in them. I really believe that people deserve to wake up in the morning excited and inspired to go to work, to feel valued and safe while they're there, and then when they get home, feel fulfilled from the day of work. I think for folks to experience that, it requires leaders who bring out the best in others. And those leaders who choose to do this, those are leaders who frankly separate themselves from all other leaders. I spent a lot of my adult life in the coaching world, especially coaching basketball, but it's also true in most other sports. There's a technical side to coaching where the coach has to know what to do, has to understand the game and know how to respond to differing situations that take place in the game. But there's also a relational aspect where it's less about understanding the game and more about connecting and relating and understanding the people who are playing the game for you, understanding them. And on the relational side, there are really two key aspects on the relational side. One is providing support when and as needed, and then providing challenge when is as needed. And having watched especially the collegiate level of sports over the years, it's been my takeaway that most collegiate coaches especially, they do a pretty good job on the technical aspect of the game, knowing what to do. But in watching and in really reading some of the books of some of the best coaches, they just excel at the relational, the people aspect of things. I've watched for 30 years, Coach K of Duke University, Jay Wright at Villanova, Kansas coach Bill Self, and others that have endured a long time in the same places. They not only understand the game and what to do in particular situations, but they have an uncanny ability to bring out the best in their players. And those who do that, as I said, indeed separate themselves from all others. So there's that support side, the supportive behaviors. If you were to imagine a horizontal line that's a continuum, and on the far left is a supportive side of behaviors and attitudes, and on the far right would be a challenging side of behaviors and attitudes, how would you go about providing supportive behavior to those people on your team or in your family, whatever the case may be? How would you go about doing that? What kind of supportive behaviors are necessary to truly bring support and words, as it were, of life to people? Well, things like empathy would be certainly important, empowering, listening well, training, affirming, believing in, encouraging, building confidence, inquiry, being curious, asking questions, reinforcing when necessary, being available, offering autonomy and freedom, endorsing them, helping them to understand and to see what they do best, and adding value. All of those attitudes and behaviors are very supportive. But is it possible to provide too much support, and in so doing creating maybe complacency or laziness or a sense of feeling inadequate or entitled? How about feeling mothered or becoming too dependent, perhaps being undermined showing a lack of trust, end up doing less because over supportive? How about being maybe micromanaged as a result, becoming bored and unchallenged? All of those are the resultant feelings and responses to leaders who provide too much support. Now let's go to the right side of the continuum, on the challenge side. On the challenge side, what do you need to do well to correctly and rightly challenge people? How do you do that? Well, things like providing goals and clear expectations, knowing what motivates them and how to motivate them, pushing them, holding them accountable, asking the hard questions, inspiring them, letting them fail, trusting them, building resilience in them, I think really by letting them fail, offering them regular and consistent feedback. I think we challenge them well when we lead ourselves well. It challenges them. But as in the supportive side of things, is it possible and probable that sometimes too much challenge creates trouble, or people feel overwhelmed, pressured, they're tired and exhausted, burned out, they feel too stretched, demotivated, defeated, feel anxious, perhaps underappreciated, discouraged, perhaps even frustrated as well? Think about that continuum. Far left side is support and far right is encouragement. Where would you place you in the support challenge continuum? That's important. And it's important because we tend to treat others with our preference or our default. We all have a preferred go-to style, and we tend to lead and to treat others according to our preference. My default is pretty far over on the high challenge side. But here's the key, and what this lesson is all about. The key to bringing out the best in others is providing what they need, support or challenge, when they need it, in the moment that they need it. It's always best, I think, to lead with support before challenge. Doing that, I think, establishes trust more quickly, which is, after all, the glue to leading and to relationships and to building team. Support before challenge is critically, I think, important. Now, sometimes if it's a crisis, you can't do that. But as I've said before, there are so many trust issues in the workplace. 45% of employees feel like they have a bad boss. 54% don't trust their boss. 58% trust a stranger even more than their boss. So it's about providing what your people could be your family, could be your spouse, could be your friends, it could be coworkers, could be people that report to you, people you report to. It's about providing what they need in the given moment. It's not about providing my preference or my default. It's not even about providing balance. It's about providing an appropriate measure of support or challenge for what they need. And this is one of the best ways to relate to and to connect with others. Those leaders who are able to read a particular situation and the people in that particular situation, and then to provide the appropriate amount of support and the appropriate amount of challenge, those are the ones who separate themselves from others. There's a tool. It's really a model called a support challenge model or matrix, and it's a very, very helpful tool to determine the kind of the level or support in your leadership. And I want to say that as I walk through these different support challenge leadership styles, that you realize this is not limited to work. This has tremendous implications for the most meaningful relationships of life outside of work as well. But basically, there are 4 types of leaders. There's a dominating leader, the protecting leader, the abdicating leader, and the liberating leader. And research indicates when employees are asked, which leadership style are you receiving? 20% say the dominating style. 13% say the protecting style. 26% of employees say their experience is the liberating style. And 41% say the abdicating style. So let's just kind of look at each one of these and be asking yourself, where do you see yourself most of the time? It might be, again, tends to be more of your default position. Well, first let's look at the dominating style. That's when you got a high challenge and low support. These are the type A, you might say high D taskmasters. And as I said, I tend to fall more into this particular quadrant. Those who are overly hungry and dominating and taskmasters in their leadership style, they tend to create a culture of fear, intimidation, and manipulation. The team is anxious and there's high stress as well. They expect and require much. They demand a lot, but unfortunately, they tend to support very little. These type of leaders tend to be more controlling and micromanagers. They're always telling and rarely listening. They are so results driven. As a result, the people who work for them, the family that relate to them, tend to be frustrated, fearful, discouraged, worn out, anxious. The dominating leader, and 20% of the people say that they work for a dominating leader. Is that you? What about the protecting leader? This is someone who provides high support but very low challenge. The team gets very comfortable. These are the leaders who are more coddlers and protectors and nurturers. They create a culture of entitlement and even mistrust. They give more support, but they have lower expectations, minimal challenge. They're nurturing. They're not very assertive. There's a conflict avoidance in these kind of leaders. They tend to maintain the status quo, help people live in more of a comfort zone, and they get very comfortable. They'll do the extra rather than asking people to do the extra. As I said, the team gets too comfortable. Some even get bored. People are not stretched. They get lazy. They're apathetic and even have a sense of entitlement. So do those terms describe you as a protecting leader? How about the third leader, the abdicating leader? This is where there's really low challenge and low support. These are, I call them unleaders. These are lazy leaders. And oftentimes the team feels very neglected. This type of abdicating leader creates a culture of apathy and low expectations, where people feel neglected, worn out, perhaps overwhelmed, and certainly feel unproductive. This leader is not performing his or her duties or responsibilities in their role. Maybe it's because they don't feel they have the power or authority. But I think the abdicating leader produces people who don't make decisions, who don't have a get-it-done mindset, because they say, why bother? My leader doesn't care. And the leader ends up, and do the people who work for them, with a mentality of self-preservation and maintaining the status quo. And 41% of people say they work. This is the highest percentage say they work for this kind of a leader. And then the last leader is the liberating leader. This is the leader who has found a really good balance between high challenge and high support. These are the enabling leaders in a good sense. These are the facilitating leaders. These are the leaders that we talked about in the ideal team player, who have a tremendously good balance of humble, hungry, and people smart. These leaders, liberating leaders, create a culture of empowerment and opportunity to grow. People who work under this kind of leadership thrive and blossom. Leaders here tend to be confident, secure, humble. These leaders encourage us to be and to do our best. They're open to new ideas. They're open to collaboration. These leaders build healthy organization and teams. As I said, the people are thriving. The people want to work for these kind of leaders. They produce high relational trust. It's not about self-preservation at all. They know that the leader has their back. This kind of leader, they lead to a peak team performance where there is high energy, high innovation, high creativity, high collaboration, high development, and high growth. So you've got these four kind of leaders. the liberating leader, the protecting leader, the abdicating leader, and the dominating leader. I want to point out, if you go back to the percentages, where 20% are dominating leaders where there's low support, 41% are abdicating leaders where, again, there's low support. If you add those percentages together, over 60% of people say that they experience low support from their leaders. Low support from the leaders, which is probably sending a message to all of us as leaders. We could all do a better job of supporting the men and women who work for us and the men and women that we relate to in some of their most meaningful relationships of life. So, which of these leader types, styles, best describe where you are most of the time? Though I think we'd agree we should all aspire and have ambitions to be that liberating leader that's creating a tremendous culture of empowerment and opportunity for growth. But where would you place yourself? Here's a better question. Where would others place you? I mean, think for a moment. Why not go to 3 to 5 people in your life, maybe even more? And why not draw that continuum, that horizontal line continuum, with the left side being support and the right side being challenge, and asking several people without them knowing where you placed yourself, where would you place me on this continuum? What do a handful of people who know you well say, both at work and both in relationships outside of work? What about those people in your life? What about asking them, what would be your preference? More support or more challenge in our relationships? Listen, I really do, that people are smart and they can smell a leader's intent quickly. Most leaders, they're not bad people, but many are lacking in self-awareness and other awareness. They just are unconsciously incompetent. By that, I mean they don't know what they don't know. But it can be different. Change is possible if you want to become a leader worth following. I'm telling you, this works everywhere in all relationships. If you'll practice asking yourself consciously the question, what does this person need in this moment, right now? And then providing that. This doesn't require talent. It doesn't require skill. It just requires making a choice based on empathy and sensitivity, where you're always asking, at this moment, what will bring out the best in this person? Is it more challenge or is it more support? And then provide it. A good leader, a good coach, understands the technical side, yes, but also has a great understanding of the relational, emotional, intelligence side of leading, where they know that as a good coach, which ultimately a lot of what leadership is all about, is providing these two functions, support and challenge, and providing them in the appropriate amount as needed in any given situation and any given moment in time. I'm telling you, my friend, this is a game changer. If we ask ourselves this question and then we make the choice to provide what they need. And you say, well, what if they don't know what they need, or I can't discern? Well, if I can't discern, then ask them, how can I best help? How can I best help? And people usually know. And so answering, they'll tell you. And then you'll know what to provide appropriately. Is it more support or less support? Or is it more challenge or less challenge? A leader worth following, every leader worth following, brings out the best in others. Hey, my friend, thank you for listening to Teaching That Transforms with Dr. Jimmy Knott. Remember, teaching only transforms when consistently practiced. I look forward to you joining me next time.